Okay, so welcome to the KnolX session part 2 of eXtreme programming. And so last time we left on this part where we saw that what are the practices in eXtreme programming and how they support each other. So just a little bit of review of all the practices and how they support each other. So this diagram is pretty much self-explaining that how one practice actually supports other practice of eXtreme programming, and what will happen if we remove a particular practice and how it will affect other practices. So for example, if we take an example, if we take a practice of like just testing, so we see that the testing actually supports continuous integration. That is, without testing there cannot be any continuous integration. Next, it supports collective ownership. So if we do not write test cases or we do not do proper testing of our product, then in that case, team members cannot take the collective ownership of the whole product. Likewise, it is for pair programming, that without testing we cannot do the pair programming, and we can also not provide short releases. That is, we cannot have short release cycles or continuous integration, just like this. Also, we cannot have a simple design. That is, if we are able to do testing properly, then it means that our design is simple and anybody can understand it. Next, it supports an on-site customer. So your on-site customer is pretty much confident if the testing is done properly and all the test cases run 100%. Also, the testing helps in refactoring. So, which is responsible where we do most of the cleaning of the code. So, from just this one particular example, we can see that how important testing is, because without it, almost none of the practices in eXtreme programming can be supported or cannot happen, or even the eXtreme programming cannot even itself exist.
So these on-site customers, I mean, who are they? Who are those people? I mean, who is?
Okay, so this on-site customer is generally a dedicated tester provided from the client side, and the reason for having that tester on the customer side is that they understand the product business view of the product much better than the development team, because most of the because while testing, if a particular feature should work in a particular way or in a manner, then that tester knows about testing, because that tester knows that this is how it should behave. So generally an on-site customer or an on-site tester is required for that thing, and even the on-site customer is required for rapid feedback. So as soon as we release a particular feature, we get the feedback that okay, whether it's working fine or it is behaving properly or not. So for that purposes, it's on-site customers.
So in eXtreme programming, I mean, all those on-site customers, I mean, they do testing after a release, or they can like test at any time?
It depends on how short our release cycle is and whether we are following continuous integration or not. It might depend on that. We have different environments for testing, for production. So this on-site customer can refer to either the testing environment or to the actual production environment.
So it's always after that release, whether it is a short release or long?
Yes. And this release cycle can vary from an hour to 1 year. So it all depends on the project for that. Alright, so any other questions regarding any of these practices or this whole diagram itself? Okay, so let's move on to the next part of the eXtreme programming. Here, so the tagline itself says that it's what should be the management strategy in eXtreme programming. So the management strategy includes 4 main points. First one is metrics, second is coaching, third is tracking, and fourth is intervention. So let's explore them one by one. First one is metrics. Metrics is just a term used to define that whether we are measuring our progress properly or not. Because if we don't have proper metrics, that is proper parameters to measure our progress, it means we are not managing the product properly. For example, we do kind of a sprint planning before the sprint starts, and we give story points to each and every task. So that is a kind of a parameter. That is, a story point is a parameter where we are actually measuring that how complex that story is. So and at the end of the sprint, so if our goal was to complete 40 story points and we are able to complete only 36 of them, it means we were able to complete 90% of the sprint. So in that case, we are measuring it in terms of numbers, which is much more expressive or elaborate as compared to just say that, okay, that sprint was successful. We don't even know that what successful means, but 90% say that, okay, it was good, or it was the best sprint ever. So that is a kind of a parameter or a first point in management strategy. Next is coaching. So later on in the slides, there will be a particular role in eXtreme programming that will come up, which tells us about a role of coach. So generally, a coach is a person who tells that this is how it should be done. It is not about the development. It is about how the methodology should be executed. For example, if we are doing that, how we should do sprint planning, how we should coordinate with the team, and how we should how often we should do the pair programming. So a coach observes and coordinates the whole team. So coaching means coordinating the team members, and for this we have a role in eXtreme program which is of coach. So that we will see later on in the roles of a user in eXtreme programming part, which will come later on. Next part is tracking. Tracking is much more similar to feedback. If we are getting continuous feedback or rapid feedback of our product from the client or from the customer, then it means that we are tracking it and we are on the right track of development. If we are not getting the feedback, it means we are not tracking it at all, and that will make us fall out of the track. So it means that we will start developing features which we don't even need in that sprint, or which were not of higher priority in that sprint or in that release cycle. So tracking is very important for management.
So this tracking always comes from those customers, or can we do it within the team as well?
Right. So it's generally a task for the whole team. It includes both the business and the development team, because the development team needs to keep a track that what has been done and what they need to do next. Because generally in Agile or in eXtreme programming, we see that the requirements change even between the sprint. So we need to keep a track that, okay, whether we can do that in the remaining part of the release cycle or not. If we can, then we say that we go ahead with that new feature or that new requirement. But and we can only do that if we are tracking our progress. If we are not tracking it, then we cannot say that, okay, I cannot do that because we don't know where we are right now. Alright. The next part is intervention. So from the word itself, it says that the team members can intervene in between the release cycle and tell the whole team that, okay, this part of this feature should not be done in this way, or we can do it in a much better way. So intervention is kind of a process where alright, so let's take it with an example. We built a login feature, and in the login feature we added the social media login part in that feature. But somehow the Facebook part is working fine, but not the Twitter part. Twitter part is not working. Then a feedback comes from the on-site customer or from the client that, okay, Twitter part is not working properly, Facebook part is working. So in that release cycle, the client has intervened in the process and said that fix it now because it's much more critical than any other feature that we have to build in the sprint. So anybody can intervene in between, and how much that intervention should be, that depends on the development team. Because if the development team can handle that much intervention, then it is fine. Otherwise, they can say, okay, let's keep, if that bug is not critical or that feature is not critical, they can postpone it till the next release cycle. So intervention is kind of what we can say in sprint planning is scope change. That how much change was there in between the sprint regarding the stories. Whether they were like a lot of new stories were added or like some existing stories were removed. So that is a kind of a percentage of scope change inside the release cycle. All right. So any questions regarding any of the point or this? All right. Next thing, facilities strategy. So from this diagram, I think we can see that there are some people who are working on a particular product, and so from here itself we can see that they are all doing pair programming. Means two programmers on one screen. So it seems that they are following eXtreme programming, but let's see that why they're able to do it. The first thing is the arrangement of all the facilities, that is their systems or their server or their team members. They are sitting actually near to them. So all the facilities arrangement should be according to the eXtreme programming, and it says that you should have everything in your hand to start with eXtreme programming. For example, we can see that for pair programming, team members should be sitting together. For that part, if one team member is sitting into the one corner of the room, another is into another corner, then the pair programming is not possible at all. It means we cannot do eXtreme programming at all. And a particular thing that is not visible in this picture, but that was written in the book from where this picture was taken. So they also have a table, a separate table where the whole team can sit and actually do the sprint planning. So we can from here you can see that all the facilities, that is whether it's the systems or their tables or their chairs or their meeting rooms, they're actually quite near to them. So it helps a lot in eXtreme programming. Okay, so for example, in this book there was an example given where there was actually some cubicles in which the programmers were sitting and doing programming. And when they wanted to adapt the eXtreme programming, the first thing they did was remove all the cubicles, put 2 or 3 tables in the center, and started working on them. So they actually removed all the separations from their cubicles and started working together. So it's an example that is given in this book. So anybody can refer to that book for this facility strategy. Okay, so any questions regarding facilities? Okay. Next part. So it says that splitting business and technical responsibility. So here an example is given where a choice was given to a customer that whether they want to select a Ferrari or a minivan. And next the details were given for both of the products. First thing, Ferrari costed around $200,000 and minivan costed around $40,000. But and then the next thing was given was the requirement. Second, should be able to carry 5 people and should be able to run at 200 kilometers per hour. So when a client asks us or a customer asks from the development team that I want this feature, then the development team asks, what exactly is your requirement? Then according to the requirement, we select the technology or the technology stack. Here our technology stack or our product is either a Ferrari or a minivan. If the client wants to carry 5 people at once, then the obvious choice is a minivan. They cannot select a Ferrari there. But if the client wants that the car should run at least 200 kilometers per hour, or the maximum speed should be that, the obvious choice is a Ferrari. We cannot use a minivan for that purpose. So it all depends. So the first fact, or one of the factors is cost, and the second is the requirement. So according to the requirement, product is or the technology of the product is selected, and then the cost is seen for that product. And this part says that spreading business and technical responsibility. Spreading business means the cost, and the technical responsibility means requirement. That is, it is the part that it is the responsibility of the development team to ask what are your requirements, and it is part of the business strategy that how much they can put the money into that product. If they can, then go for the hard product. And if they don't have the requirement according to that, then there is no need for even any one of them. So I think this example is pretty much clear that how business and the technical responsibilities are separated in eXtreme programming. Any questions regarding it? Okay. Next is planning strategy. So this planning strategy tells us how we should plan a particular release cycle in eXtreme programming. The first part should be the goal. That is, what exactly is the goal for that release cycle. For example, for a product, for a banking product, my goal is to give a transaction feature, that is, a withdrawal feature to the client in that release cycle. That is my whole overview of the goal. It doesn't include any stories, it doesn't include any subtasks, it doesn't include any kind of technical details there. It is just my goal that I want to give this feature, or they want this feature in this particular release cycle. Then, according to the goal, the strategy is made. Okay, that right now, in this particular release cycle, we need to give the withdrawal feature here for this bank. Then, according to that, we make strategies. For example, like how many developers we need to we need for this release cycle, what their expertise should be, and how much time it will take to do that, to build this feature, and other factors are there. So a strategy is made according to the goal. After that, we create pieces for that strategy. And pieces means we separate those tasks into smaller subtasks. So we start creating pieces according to the strategy. That now, for this withdrawal feature, we need to add a new package there, or add new module there. Then what that module will consist of, for example, that module will have validations for login, and will have like alert system and other things there for the withdrawal feature. So pieces are created for that release cycle, or for that goal. Then players. So it's part of the strategy that who will be developing, or who will be there in the team for that particular release cycle. For example, there are like 10 members in the whole team, including the business and the development team, and they need at least 2 or 3 testers and 5 developers and 1 on-site customer and such like that. So they start selecting that how many people they need and what their expertise level should be, or what their domain is. So players means that part. Next is moves. That what should be the process, or how they should move to achieve that goal. For example, the first part is for the withdrawal part. We need validation, that is the login. If the user is not logged in, we cannot move to the next part. So that is the first move that we need to make. Second is alert system. That the user needs to be, or the client should be alerted that there is a withdrawal being made from their account, and the step 3, step 4, and 5. Because so those moves are selected after that.
These pieces are tasks, right?
We can say that, but not exactly technical tasks. It can include feedback, or it can include like deploying in middle of the sprint and or in middle of the release cycle and asking the user that okay, now it's done and please provide us feedback for that thing, or can you use it for a small transaction or for other things. So these are just like these are tasks but not related to technical part. Those can be from related to business, those can be related to planning, and those can be related to review.
So do we track that? I mean, we like create some like I mean, we note them. I mean, like if you use Git, like we can create those tasks, right? I mean, some kind of incident, so we like record them.
Sure. So just can we just a minute. So in this picture, we can see a board there, which actually having tasks written on them. So this is how they actually track their progress. That okay, this was the task that they need to complete it, and they have completed it. So all this facility strategy actually include these things also. That whether the team needs those stickies that we use nowadays for which we put up on the board and say that okay, these are the tasks that we need to do, and whichever are done, we just remove it from the board.
So do we record and move as well? I mean,
exactly. Everything is tracked, and for everything we need a feedback.
in what form we actually record those moves?
In what form? So nowadays it's in generally if you have used Jira, then there is a sprint board where you can go and check the progress of your sprint, and it will tell that okay, there's an ideal curve for that thing. I think I can draw that part. Can you actually? So if on that board, what we generally see is that I'm just making a part of it. So it's a 2-week sprint. So the ideal curve is like this, and this endpoint means end of sprint, and this means start.
This is the burn down chart?
Exactly, sorry, I forgot the term. It is a burn down chart. So this is how they keep a track of the progress, and as soon as we move a task from in progress to done or complete or close, then actually it says okay, it's done, but now it's going a little bit further that no work has been done till now. But as soon as we do again a task, it goes down. But ideal curve should be like this.
Yeah, it goes down only when the story is accepted, right?
It depends according to the settings of Jira. It might depend that it can go down even on done also. It might go down even on close also. So it all depends on Jira settings, and it depends on the client. That whether they want to intervene 2 steps, 3 steps, or might 5 steps.
Because for example, we were not able to track our how we are responding with the sprint. So that's why I'm asking, because in our case the client does not accept the stories till the end, and at the end of the sprint he accepts all the stories. So that's why we cannot track how we are doing.
Okay, but
that's Scrum, I guess, right?
Yeah.
You are following Scrum, right?
I guess.
that can be a part of it. But if but the client or the final acceptor should be keeping this in sync with the sprint, that it should be done on regular basis, not only at the end of the release cycle, so that you can keep a track that what have been accepted and what not have been accepted. So this burnout chart reflects that part. Ideal line is this. So it might go like this, and in the end like this. So this is how we can keep a track. This is like kind of a digital tracking, but earlier they used to track it with the help of like some manual means.
So can we make tickets for the moves also?
Tickets for the
Moves that you have given them for deploying or something. For example, this one-down chart does not goes down or does not changes if we add any bug inside that. For example, if we add another ticket for a bug, okay, then it does not affect this one-down chart. But we are spending a time on that bug.
Yeah, but if that bug you have added it to the current sprint,
Yes.
then it will automatically get updated. If that is not added in, if that part is still in the backlog, this will not get updated.
Actually, we add in the same sprint, but it does not get updated. That's why I'm asking.
So
it does not
as,
change.
As soon as that story gets accepted or that subtask gets accepted, it will go down. It all depends on the scope change or how much change have been done in that particular release cycle.
It also depends upon the tracker that you are using.
I think
We are using
both are-
Jira, we are
I
using
think both are
Promoter, we have both.
different. The development burn down chart is different from the defects. So
Yeah.
I'm using Rally, so there.
We have two types of one-down charts.
Yes, I think there are two kind of.
Because in Pivotal there's only one type of one-down chart and it does not changes with the bug.
It might be. It might not be there in Jira, but it might be there in other
Trackers.
platforms. You can say that.
You can't associate any bug with any story.
No idea.
Defects
Basically, there are multiple charts for like if we take the example of pivotal tracker, there are multiple charts. One is for the velocity that contributes for the story points that we are giving, and it computes the velocity of the sprint depending on the story points that we have covered.
Right.
So burn down chart is a different story. Like it's not exactly the same, but it basically works only for the new features that we are taking. It's not considering the bugs.
Yeah, exactly. So this burnout chart is just a metric to measure your progress. It might be there, like other metrics might be there. That, for example, he said that for velocity is there, and might be how much scope change is there, or for example, how much change was made into that sprint or release cycle.
But how can we track this? Because, for example, in the bugs we cannot specify the story, cannot specify the points according to how much time we have spent on that.
How much? But that is, I think, that is related to that is related only to the Jira. It might not happen into.
No, in our case we are using pivotal tracker.
Okay.
In that,
So
it
that's
is
what
not.
I'm saying. It's dependent on the platform.
Depending on the platform.
So we need to change the platform.
Yeah, we can.
Not necessarily.
You can send a requirement or create a
So there is one more thing. Strategy is there as well, right? So does this strategy and also like related? I mean, should those moves should be according to those strategy?
Ideally, they should be. Because if they are not, it means that we are picking up a task which is of lower priority. For example, there was an experiment conducted in which a person has to put the letters into envelopes, and there were like 1,000 letters and envelopes there. So one strategy is that first put all the letters into envelopes and then fold them, or paste them together. But and they measure the time for both strategies. That the person is completing the whole task at once. That is putting the letter and then sticking it. That is the second strategy. So in the second strategy, the time taken was less than the first one. So if we have a strategy that okay, we should go by this only, then ideally we should follow that. For example, if I have made the alerting system before then login, then the user will start getting alerts for a withdrawal even if the user is not logged in. Or we are not even checking that okay, the user is not logged in, but still he is getting alerts for those things. It means something is going wrong with that process. But it all depends on the business of the domain. That is a particular part of
Do we
that.
record strategies as well?
Yes, they use. We should.
I mean this Jira or and
Jira or-
what is it,
Pivotal tracker.
Does they give us like features to
I don't think so now.
Strategy.
Because most of the strategy is still verbal instead of recorded. So it's still informal way of progressing. But we can still do that in while writing tasks on whiteboards or via other methods.
But basically, we also add some part of the strategy within the tickets as a description.
Yes, because generally what you see is that those stories or the tasks are actually arranged in priority order,
Yeah.
and they should be.
Yeah.
So it means the user wants or the client wants that feature, story 1 or task 1 to be completed before the task 2.
Yeah, and even they can change the priorities within the sprint.
They can change.
Yeah, and putting one ticket over the other, it means that it has more priority over there.
Exactly.
And should the strategy, only related to those tickets or the stories? It can be anything, right?
It can be related to the team members. For example, a particular team member a new team member is added into the team. So that is also part of strategy that while development, it might happen that they need a new client, they need a new on-site client or on-site customer, and it might also happen that while developing or in that release cycle, they might need new servers. So that is also part of the strategy. So they should all be planned ahead, but it's not necessary that everything is always planned ahead. There might be some modifications which can be done during the release cycle. Alright. Any more questions regarding the planning? That is the moves.
Please give us the difference between strategy and moves.
Okay. Strategy is dependent on the goal. Keeping in mind that what exactly is the goal for the release cycle, we plan our strategy. For example, the strategy might include hiring new people or getting more resources or hardware and creating tasks or stories on the Gyro or pivotal tracker. And it might also include training, that the team needs to be trained on this particular technology which we are going to use in the next release cycle. So the strategy includes all those factors or all those requirements that are required for making this release cycle successful, that is achieving this goal which we have defined earlier. And the moves are the steps that the team takes while in the release cycle. For example, and they are most of the time they are in a form of a procedure. For example, step 1, start the training from now. Step 2, hire new members. Step 3, buy more hardware. Right. So this is the difference between strategy and the moves. Next is iteration planning. That is, try to include or have much more smaller cycles in that short release cycle itself. For example, in our sprint, we do daily stand-ups with the team on whiteboard. So those are the tasks that we need to do on that particular day. We define them according to the day. That today, these are the tasks that we need to complete. So that is kind of an iteration planning that eXtreme programming helps us to or says us to do. That is, you might have a release cycle of 2 weeks, but daily you should do a planning that this is where we are and this is where we need to go now, and this is all the tasks that we will be doing in next 1 hour or 1 day or 2 days. Next is exploration phase. Exploration phase is somehow related to the refactoring or the cleaning part, which happens at every moment of the development. For example, while developing, we found that there is a new way of doing it, or this new version of that particular technology has arrived, and we need to adopt it as soon as possible. It might not be the part of that strategy or that particular release cycle, but this exploration phase helps us in keeping ourselves updated for the product. For example, if we are using Elasticsearch, so earlier versions of Elasticsearch were not having security as a feature of their release, but later on they introduced security in the release itself. So, and how the team got to know about it, they were exploring each and every part of the product regularly. It might happen like every week or every month or every year, depending on the release cycles. Next one is commitment phase. How frequent should be our commits or push onto the actual environment of the production? Again, it can vary with every commit to end of the release cycle. Generally, it's end of the release cycle, but continuous integration part says that it should happen with every commit. That with every commit, your code should be there into production or into testing environment, so that we can get a rapid feedback. Because we do not want to wait till the end of the release cycle and ask the feedback from the client. Although we have a short release cycle, but that's a kind of a ideal approach for commitment phase. The next is scaling phase. The scaling phase is a kind of a phase where we take big steps regarding the product. For example, for example, in a particular product, we came to know that now the Elasticsearch has a feature which is critical for our product, and which should be there. So what happens is they start adapting it as soon as possible. For that, there are some things that need to be done. For example, training or documentation release, or might be any kind of a part related to the Elasticsearch, or a whole new resource for that thing. So the steering phase is that keep on changing as soon as possible according to the requirements. Right. And the last is planning in a week. It means that we should plan for that particular week ahead, because in the starting we saw that we should not work, or ideally we should work only 40 hours a week. So we should plan for that particular whole week in the starting itself, that in this week these are the tasks that we should complete within those 40 hours of work. So these are the planning steps, or which are included in the eXtreme programming planning strategy. Any questions regarding any of the steps?
In eXtreme programming, it's like the planning is shorter than Scrum, I guess, right? But in Scrum, it's like, one sprint should be like 2 weeks, and you should like do anything after that sprint only, right? And here,
it's not completely true, because in Scrum we can have sprints varying from 1 week to 4 weeks.
okay.
So if your sprint is of 1 week, then you have to do planning for that part. But Scrum doesn't say regarding anything of 40-hour work in a week. Scrum doesn't say it. eXtreme programming says it. Because in Scrum there is no description like that, you should only work this much in that particular sprint or in that particular release cycle. But eXtreme programming says that not more than 40 hours a week. So we should be planning for that week ahead.
So what's exactly planning in a week is?
Planning in a week means you should plan for that week ahead. That is, for example, if that Monday is the starting day of our week, so we should plan for that particular whole week, or for that whole week on Monday itself.
Depending on the stories that we have.
Yeah, you can say that. Or the task or the different moves we need to make.
What if our stories keep on changing within every 2 days? Like within what Scrum and eXtreme programming differs is in regard of how the stories are, like the requirements are keep on changing in eXtreme programming, and Scrum is saying that your sprint goals will not change for the sprint. Like in a particular sprint.
It might be because it totally depends on the team whether they want or whether they can do that particular change in that release cycle or not. For example, if you're saying that your requirements of the stories change every 2 days, and your sprint is of just 2 weeks, right? So you need to adapt or need to change according to the new requirements. But it is up to the team, development team, estimation that whether they can include that change in that sprint or not. If you can, then do it. Otherwise, tell to the business people or to the client that we can do it, but it will not extend the sprint, but we have to drop any other task for this thing. For example, I'm building the alert system for the bank, but suddenly says that okay, we want alert system for everything, SMS, emails, WhatsApp, or any other things, and we said that okay, we will be able to do only SMS and emails in this sprint. Rest of that we can do in another sprint or release cycle. So it's up to the development team. Development team is not separated from the business people. It's not the business people dictating that okay, if this needs to be done, then it has to be done. Then your week will definitely going to extend more than 40 hours. You need to plan according to that, keeping that in mind. So there's always a negotiation between business or the client and the development team.
And one more thing, for example, at the starting of the sprint, the client said that this is the story, we want the story in this sprint, okay?
Right.
But he does not defines the acceptance criteria and the requirements, exact requirements of that. He says that in the middle of the sprint, I will provide those.
Mm-hmm.
And should we, plan that sprint accordingly? For example, should we assign a time estimation to that story or not?
We should.
We should.
But keeping in mind that we don't have the acceptance criteria right now. Keeping in mind that those things, because that can come later on, and you can tell that okay, we don't have all the details for this task right now, but so we are estimating it to be this much complex. But later on, if it changes, you can always change your estimation. It's a kind of a adapting process. You can always change it later on.
Okay, suppose if there is a ticket that was given to us by the client, and then that ticket defines the requirement, okay, and
Right.
also the acceptance criteria. But suppose in the middle of the sprint, then we deliver the continuous integration for that particular requirement and ask for the approval, or that if it is working fine according to the requirement, then client describes that no, I need this one more feature included in this feature itself.
Right.
You have to extend this feature and you have to give me this feature more.
Exactly.
So in that case, he would not accept the ticket until or unless we deliver all of the new requirements. So in this case, what should we do? Should we create another ticket for this, or
no? What you should do? Of course, there should always be a ticket for that new feature.
But if they are not they're not allowing us to create another ticket, they are just including this the extension within the same ticket. But in that case, what we are facing is
then
our estimation
then make that feature as a subtask of your current feature.
Yeah, that is what we are doing. But in this case, the estimation time for that particular ticket is going haywire. Like we cannot estimate.
It will change. Then you have to tell the client that okay, we can include this new feature as per your description, but we have to drop some of the less priority tasks for this thing.
So it's like,
because this will take like another 1 or 2 days for development.
So it's like within extreme programming, it's very quite normal to have most of the tickets dropped in another sprint, and like one sprint will never be completed.
It all depends on the development team. If your team can deliver it, then it's quite good. Otherwise, you have to tell them. Because before building that feature, you have to make an estimation that how much time it will take. You always put a time to this task, I think.
Yeah.
Right? So as soon as you put a time there, you are going to tell that okay, this much is the time this is going to take, and has already exceeded the release cycle. So we will not be able to deliver these tasks which are of less priority, because these comes after this particular feature 1 or 2 or 3 or.
So it all depends on the priority of the ticket.
Exactly. They should always be arranged in priority. And if the client is not doing it, just ask them that what is your priority for this.
So clients cannot change the priority of the ticket within this.
They can change. They can change it.
Then how are we going to plan for, ahead in a week? How are we going to,
This
foresee
planning
these things?
ahead in a week means these are the tasks that you're going to do. This doesn't mean that you are not, you cannot take any more changes into this. It means that whatever task you have right now, this planning takes those into consideration. It might happen that your week might be of just 4 days or just 3 days. It might happen. So it all depends on the development team estimation for the task. If you have said that this task will take about a day or 2, then tell them, okay, if we are going to build this new feature, we will not be able to do those things in that particular release cycle or sprint. Because it is not the client who is developing, it is the development team who is doing the development part. Let's move on to the next slide.
Himanshu, so iteration planning is same as sprint planning, or is there any difference?
I think this iteration planning is if we have too many iterations in a particular release cycle. So, for example, we can take every day as an iteration for a particular sprint. For example, if we have a sprint of 2 weeks, then every day becomes an iteration for me, or every 2 days become an iteration for me. Then we should plan for that particular iteration.
Okay.
Before going into.
So actually, I used Rally, and this definition is not in line with whatever Rally has provided us. So in Rally, we do not create sprint; we create sprint iterations. And iterations would be of 2 weeks.
Okay.
So there would be a 2-week iteration, and they would be milestone as well. So milestone would be something like release 1, release 2, and then iteration. And iteration is very much similar to sprint, according to Rally.
It all depends on the type of the process we are adopting. Because eXtreme programming says that you mentioned that there the sprint was of 2 weeks, and every milestone was a release, or it was kind of an iteration.
Okay.
Then your every milestone becomes your iteration, comes under iteration planning. That for this milestone, these are the things that we need to do, or these are the tasks that we need to do. And it can be, a milestone can be like as small as from a day to a year. It might happen.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that in Rally, iteration is very much similar to sprint.
Oh, okay.
So in Rally, there is no concept of sprint. There is only iteration. So you can use it interchangeably.
Right. So it might happen in Rally. Might happen.
So is it that after each iteration is complete, we have to deploy the code on staging or on some other platform?
It all depends on your commitment phase. How frequent it should be. Like it can vary from.
After every sprint, you have to deploy the code, right?
Yes.
Yeah, but some in some places they said with every commit you have to deploy it.
Yeah, so there must be a few environments. So in acceptance environment, you must deploy it after the sprint or after the iteration. But there would be a development environment, and in it would be use the continuous deployment.
After every commit,
Yeah, after every commit.
But it would be less stable.
Yeah, definitely, development environment would be less.
But if your test cases are 100% running, everything will be stable. If they are not, then it means your code is not properly working. So let's move on to the next slide. A bit faster. And so that next is the development strategy. Now, what exactly should be the development strategy? First part is continuous integration. So this continuous integration is a cycle where first thing that happens is the learning part, second is test, then code, and then release. So the continuous integration says that whatever feature you have to build, if that need requires a particular part that we need to learn, then do that first, then create test cases, then write code which will just pass these test cases, and then release it.
So we should like write test cases first.
Exactly. Without testing, there should not be any code. We generally do coding first and then testing because we need to pass those test cases with every commit that we want. But the test case should be there for every situation that we are going to face or every acceptance criteria that the client has created for us. That this should be there for that feature in place.
More questions. The acceptance criteria, the exact acceptance criteria that is written inside the story, who will write it? Should we write it or the client should write it?
Anybody can write it. Generally, client writes. Generally.
Because we can miss some cases, for example, it might work on this case, but it might work, does not work on the other case, because we are facing this.
But it all depends on your requirements. For example, in login, I don't want the social media login. So I will not write test cases for those things. I will simply reject them. That is not my requirement. So your test cases actually work as your documentation or your requirements. If you have test cases in there, it means that these are the situations or these are the criteria where the client wants the code to be accepted or the feature to be accepted. That's why the testing is done first and then the coding happens. Because they define that what should be the code. And the code should never define that what should be the test case. Right. Next thing is collective ownership. What it does is it removes the complex code from the project. It means that although there can be complex code in the project, but every team member actually knows what it does. For example, if we are building a feature which is an alert system, team member 1 knows that how the alerting system for SMS works, and team member 2 knows how the alerting system for emails work. But none of them has actually ever shared their knowledge with each other. They have not actually worked on them in pair programming. So what will happen is, if the team member 1 no longer works in that project, then that code becomes complex for team member 2. So there should be no complex code in the project. That happens only when we take collective ownership of the product. And the last part is pair programming. It should be like dropping a drop of color in water. It should spread as quickly as possible. It should not be slow. That's why the image is there for this thing. So try to do pair programming as much as possible, because it helps in understanding, it helps in knowledge sharing, and also it helps in making the code better or the product much better. Alright. Any questions regarding this? Okay. Next thing is, what should be the design strategy?
One question from the previous, like collective ownership. They are part of the sprint, they are part of the tickets that have different requirements, and some people are more suited to do some task, and it depends on the expertise of any one player. So in this case, due to shortage of time, how do we manage collective ownership if they are always doing pair programming? Then it's hard to keep on finishing the tasks that we are having.
Right. So first thing is there, if you are doing pair programming, then there will be there will be never a single person doing that or making that code for that feature.
Correct.
If there are 2 people, then you can have a collective ownership for that thing. For example, I wrote a code in the product, and I did it in pair programming with team member 2.
Yeah.
Right. And the next day, team member 3 actually needs that feature to build another feature on top of that.
Okay.
Right. So what they will do, they will come to me or the team member 2 first, because they were the ones who actually developed it. They will ask them, that team member 3 will ask them that, okay, how you did it, explain me, so that I can build this new feature on top of that. Right. So this is how that part of the code, knowledge for that part, spreads in the team. And this also like handles that the collective ownership time shortage.
But it could be the case that what the other person, the team member 3 is explaining to team member 1, the team member 1 does not have any clue about it because the technology is different on which the team member 3 was working on.
It might happen. It can happen.
So what should be the response from the team member 1? What could he do instead of?
Then there should be everything in that code should be explained to that person. That this line does this line does this, and this line does this. Everything should be explained. So it all part of the eXtreme programming. And the question and the answer to your time shortage part is that if 2 people are doing it, then the next day it might happen that someone else will do pair programming with me. So I'll just share my knowledge to them, or they will share their knowledge to me. So this is how work is done in eXtreme programming. Next thing, design strategy. We should design for today's problem today and tomorrow's problem tomorrow. We should never do the designing of that product before even we know about it. Now, this graph here explains how we should, why it should be done like that. First thing is time. That is always the most important factor in our product development. It means that as the time goes on or the time passes, the complexity of the design or the design complexity keeps on increasing. You might have seen that the people who have actually started developing that product have much more information about the architecture, the design of the product than the people that are coming later on. Why? Because they know that how it got started and to where it actually has gone. So taking these 3 statements in consider, for example, what you have now is this design, that's the design 1. What you need now is design 2. So we should design it according to the requirements or the features that we need now, not what we need later on. If we need some features later on, then we should design it later on itself. We should not design it for like, okay, these are the features that I need now, and these are the features that we need later on. So let's take it straight to the design 3. This should not happen because it takes time and both the cost to do those things. Okay, any questions? The next thing is testing strategy. An outline that describes the testing approach of the software development cycle. That is this is the definition that I've taken from Wikipedia. It says that, so what exactly is this testing strategy should be? What should be your testing approach? For example, in different products, different style of testing is actually adopted. This might happen due to the domain of that product, or it might happen the decisions made by the team that okay, these are the things we will be testing. For example, in some places we don't need acceptance criteria at all. We don't need acceptance testing there. Some product might be developed and people say that okay, I don't need it. So don't do the acceptance testing there. But if they want acceptance testing, then do it. It all depends on the decision made by the team regarding the testing. So there is no like guideline for testing strategy in eXtreme programming. It all depends on the team. Although the unit test or the test cases should always be there. We cannot remove the testing out of the product development. Alright, so let's move on to the next. I'll finish it in a little bit faster now. Next one is adopting XP. Now, how to adopt XP? the most important thing is that the people who are doing it from like beginning, it's easy for them to say that okay, we are doing XP. But the people who haven't done XP before, so it's a little bit hard for them. But this is an approach which we can take to adopt XP. Any questions regarding it? No? Retrofitting XP. That is how to actually fit XP into the products which are going on. First is start with testing. The first thing that we should do for adopting or like fitting XP into a current project is start with testing. This is the first thing that we should do. Then change the design. If your design is not testable, it means we need to change it. Then do planning on regular basis. Start planning iteratively or regularly. Then include everyone in management. Try to include the whole team when you are doing actually planning or taking decisions for the product. And don't leave development. So it doesn't mean that the people who are actually leading the team or they stop developing the code. They should regularly do the development so they can keep that okay. They can keep the whole so they can actually help in exploration phase, because it's their responsibility to add or to keep the product updated with as the time changes or the technology changes. So any questions regarding retrofitting XP?
How do you like include everyone in management? I mean, is there any example or something?
Ideally, everyone or every team member should be in the planning process or the decision-making process, but it all depends that whether it should happen or not. Ideally, it should, because the development team knows that how exactly it should be developed or how they're going to develop it, and the business team knows that what they want actually. So everyone should be included, but it can depend whether they want to include a particular member in the team or not. It all depends. Like the next thing is life cycle of an ideal XP project. Okay, the first point is exploration. That first we should any XP project actually starts with exploring the technology stack or the technologies they are going to need to develop that product. This generally happens on the client side because it's their decision that what they are going to use to develop that product. Next thing is planning. They start planning for the 4 variables of XP, which are cost, time, scope, and I'm missing one scope, missing one variable there. I think it's I need to check. Sorry?
Risk.
I don't know. Might be the risk, but yeah. So in the planning part, they actually take all these 4 variables into account and start evaluating them and making a little bit trade-off. For example, they can put into a lot of money, but they don't have time. So they increase the cost and reduce the time. But sometimes they don't have that much cost to develop their product. They want to reduce the risk, but they have a lot of time to develop the product. So they increase the time and reduce the cost. And so on goes the other 2 variables. Next is iterations to first release. That is, make the iteration or the release cycle, or the decide that how long that release cycle should be for the first release. For example, some of the open source projects have a release cycle of generally 45 days. Most of this happens for the Apache products or the Apache softwares. They have a release cycle of 45 days. So they decide that okay, after every 45 days, they have to give a release for that software or that product. Next is productionizing. So this is where the actual coding starts or the development starts, and the code starts getting into the production or the release. Next part is maintenance, which keeps on going as long as the product is alive. And the last is dead. And when it happens,
There is no more support for the product.
सही आंसर है यार, जब क्लाइंट पैसा देना बंद कर दे, ठीक है, तो बंद हो ही जाएगा. So this is the whole life cycle for an XP project. Next is roles for people. I'll just go through them quickly. There are programmers who actually codes. There are customer who actually owns the project. Tester who do the testing for the project. Tracker. They are the people who keeps the track of the whole product and how the development is going on. Next we have a coach who actually coordinates the whole team. A consultant which generally is on the client side and tells them, okay, this is the technology stack that we should use for this product. And the last one is big boss. He actually decides everything for the product. Okay, now you can decide that who is the big boss for your product, for your project. Okay, next thing is 20-80 rule. 80% of the benefit comes from the 20% of the work. It's a rule that has been adopted by XP because it's a well-defined or a well-experimented rule. XP makes use of this rule itself by putting the most valuable 20% of functionality into production, do the most valuable 20% of the design. So even if we are able to achieve 20% of the features in that release cycle, using the 20% of the most valuable design, then it means that we will be able to achieve the 80% of benefit from that product. So don't do the whole work in the whole release cycle, do just the 20% most valuable part. Okay? Next, what makes XP hard? Why XP is a little bit difficult for people to adopt? By adopting XP as a development process, we are accepting responsibility for being aware and modifying it when there is a problem. So generally it's against the nature of human beings that they don't want to take the responsibility for anything that goes wrong. So that makes XP a little bit hard. But by adopting or following the practices of XP, this fear goes away and everyone is able to do the work properly. So once we have adopted XP, there is no fear regarding the product or the development or any role of the product. But we still need to know that what actually makes XP hard. That is the responsibility here. Okay. When you shouldn't try XP. Till now we have seen advantages and the process to adopt it and other things for the XP. Now we need to know that where we shouldn't try XP at all. The first case is complete analysis of design. If the client asks a complete analysis of design before even actually the development begins, it means we cannot adopt XP at all because the design actually change in every release cycle or with every iteration in XP. So we cannot do the trial XP where we need to do a complete analysis of design before even we have started working on it. Next is too much documentation. If we have a lot of documentation, for example, in some of the banks we must have seen that they do a lot of paperwork. So people don't like it that they are doing this much paperwork. That okay, ये document लेके आओ, ये document लेके आओ, ये paper लेके आओ. So that is not an approach for XP because in XP test cases or the test is actually your documentation. So you don't need documentation at all in there. Then long working hours. If they have long working hours, then you can definitely not try XP at all because it requires a lot of work in just a small time frame. Then large team. If you have a team of 100 people or 500 people, then you definitely cannot adopt XP at all. You cannot do pair programming, you cannot have a collective ownership of the product. So that's why we should not adopt XP. Then is expensive technology. If your technology is too expensive, for example, if we require a supercomputer for testing our product, then we cannot definitely have the XP there, because they cannot have different supercomputers for testing, for production, and for staging. Right. So there also we cannot try XP. And the last one is long gaps in feedback. If there are too long gaps in feedback, release cycle, or like after 2 years the client says that okay, I don't want this, then you're doomed. All right. So I think that's all from my side. Any questions?